the scene under the clouds and the scene above the clouds. And that's when it kind of, something clicked and I went, oh, so this is what, Swami means by passing clouds. And Swami told him that when you harbor negative tendencies towards others, especially very strong feelings of dislike or jealousy or greed, you yourself, gather karma because of it. So then I kind of leaned into that, kind act that they had done. Even though it was something very simple, it was meaningful, so just finding ways of trying to lean into something that you could, say is positive and is associated with this individual. I offer my love and gratitude at the divine lotus feet of my sweetest Lord. I offer my love and gratitude to the sweet Sai who loves through all our hearts. Sai Ram, everybody. So when we look at the sentence, simple living and higher thinking, and you put it into two buckets or two parts, starting with simple living. For me personally, I think Swami is the best example and best role model on simple living. Here is the Lord of the universe, and yet when you observe very closely how he lived his life, it was truly in a very, very simple manner. We have heard about that from devotees and from Swami himself. For example, in one of the discourses, Swami said, when he's brushing his teeth, he doesn't let the tap run with water. He uses water to the extent that he needs. When he leaves the room, he said that, he turns off the fan and the light switch. These are things that we can definitely incorporate in our own daily lives. And also the stories about how Swami would get a lot of letters from the devotees and he would save the envelope and he would recycle the envelope in so many different ways. Wonderful examples of how we can truly embrace that simplicity in our lives. And then on the other hand is the higher thinking. What does Swami mean by higher thinking? And I feel that you can come at the essence of this one teaching in many ways. You can strive to simplify your life, your living environment. And when you do that, I feel it automatically frees up that mental space. It declutters your mind, and it fosters elevating thoughts, uplifting thoughts. You can also work on, strive towards, elevating thoughts, uplifting thoughts, and I feel that will also drive you towards simplifying your lives. So I don't think there is no right or wrong approach to this teaching of Swami. And sometimes it can be a combination of both. Simplifying just your living space, for example, as a first step, and then see how that leads to higher thinking. As I was reflecting on this topic, a few of my experiences came to mind that I wanted to share with you, and hopefully something will resonate. and you can make your own experiences out of this. It's always good to test it out. Swami himself has said, you don't have to accept my teachings blindly. You can definitely test it out, and then once you have experienced it, then it affirms your own conclusions from that experience. I used to always wonder, for everything Swami would say, it's a passing cloud. Don't worry about it. Any situation. I used to hear that a lot, especially as a child growing up. My family would tell me, because Swami would say it, it's a passing cloud, don't worry about it. And it never, comforted me. I didn't understand why, they would say that, or Swami would say that. And sometimes it would feel like, we are given to drama, so I would be like very dramatic and think like, I'm going through such a difficult experience, and then Swami is just saying like, oh, it's all a passing cloud. The situation will change. Many years ago, and there was nothing negative that was happening, but I was on my way to New Jersey to visit my older brother, and it was December time, and it was particularly overcast that morning, and so the pilot had announced that it might be a bumpy ride. So I was kind of bracing myself. I chanted the Gayatri. Swami says it's always good to chant Gayatri, especially when you're traveling, because it protects you. So I was chanting my Gayatri, and I had a window seat, and loved looking out of the window of the plane. And it was gloomy, it was dark, it was cold, and I was just, we were on the runway, speeding up, and then we took off. And then once we, got through the clouds and we reached a cruising altitude, it was bright and sunny. And it was such a big difference. The scene under the clouds and the scene above the clouds. And that's when it kind of, something clicked, and I went, oh, so this is what, Swami means by passing clouds. It depends on, where you are. Sometimes when you're going through a very challenging situation, at that particular moment in time, everything feels disheartening, discouraging, and you feel like it's almost the end of the world. There's no ray of sunshine or hope. It's all gloom and doom. But then once your position shifts, sometimes the clouds move, sometimes you rise above the clouds. Then you see the bright sunshine and light, and then you have a different perspective. Okay, it's not all that bad, So that was very interesting. The first time I actually experienced it and observed it, like going above the clouds. That it just depends on where you are and what you're experiencing, but nothing is permanent. So that was a taste of that higher thinking. I would say literally, because we were much higher off the ground, and also metaphorically speaking. So then I tried to bring it into practice and tell myself, now it was shifting, where nobody else had to tell me, oh, it's a passing cloud, or Swami didn't have to say it. I had to work towards reminding myself that it was a passing cloud and that it was not permanent. So that was one experience about the passing clouds. The second experience that Swami reminded me was also something that happened maybe about more than 10-15 years ago. For my job, I had to get recertified. You have to be certified and a licensed practitioner in the state of California. So I had to get my recertification done, and for some reason, and I'm sure you can all relate to this, I did not read the email correctly about the timelines for the application. And I had to get a letter of recommendation. So that morning I read the email again, and I realized that the application was due, and I had actually missed the deadline they had. And I was on my way to get my letter of recommendation, which would support the application as well. So as I was driving, I was quite miserable. The clouds did not come to mind at that time, and I was like, how really beating myself over it. That I was not being careful. I should have read the email properly, and that this had significant implications on my job. So it would have a huge impact. And then just randomly, this Swami, reminded me. He had said in a discourse that whenever you're, faced with a problem, you just tell Swami. And then you tell the problem that, your, Swami is, more powerful and bigger than the problem, and not worry about it. So because that thought came into my heart, so as I was driving, for the first time, I would say, my prayer changed. Up until that point, whenever I prayed to Swami for help, I would say, please Swami, help me. And maybe some of us, still do that, or maybe some of you have a different prayer. But I would say, please Swami, help me, and I would say what the problem would be. And for the first time, there was a very, very, very subtle shift in my prayer, where I did not say my usual sentence. Instead, I said, Swami is taking care of the whole world, and Swami is taking care of me as well. So instead of saying, please Swami, help me, I said to myself, Swami is helping me. And very interestingly, it just calmed my mind and my heart the moment I said, Swami is helping me. So here I was not asking Swami to help me. I just believed that Swami is helping me. And I went and I picked up my letter of recommendation. I came back, I contacted the office, and I explained to them that, it was a mistake on my part. I did not read the email properly. So I'm going to, mail the application if there's any way they would consider it. And the lady on the other end said, others had also mentioned the same reason. So she was going to wait for another few days before she finalizes the application process. And then, things kind of fell into place. And I go back to this episode often. When you have positive experiences, I think we have to make an effort to lean into it. We tend to remember the negative stuff organically. We don't forget them. Oh, this happened or that happened. But when good things happen, when our faith is affirmed, especially, we have to lean into it, because it is a constant source of strength and energy and inspiration when you lean into those experiences of faith. The other thing I learned from that was, and this was more recent, I should add, that faith can be defined in so many different ways, right? Also experienced in so many different ways. I think the other shift in my thinking that happened was, when I used to think about faith, I used to attach God to an outcome. Like, I have faith that, all this and this will happen, and it'll happen in my favor. So I would attach God to an outcome. And with this experience, I think the shift, what happened was, I started attaching God to me instead of attaching God to an outcome. And sometimes I'm amused by it. I think Swami also is amused by it. The shift in the thinking where, for me, the experience of faith is I already believe that He's helping me and He's taking care of me. So whatever happens, it's okay. It's going to work itself out. Another experience that I had, and this was also an interesting one, talking about test driving Swami's teachings. I'm sure this is also something that you can relate to. There are instances where, people push our buttons. They might say something to annoy you, irritate you. Sometimes you get angry. There's also, that sense of sometimes we tend to compare ourselves to others. So there are, negative thoughts and feelings crop up. And I think that's part of the journey. That, we are surrounded by people that's God's way of, trying to make us better. And, we understand this, conceptually. But how do we navigate that so that, it's not to our detriment, right? And so one time I was listening to this devotee's experience. He was a student in Swami's college, and a family member had cheated him and his grandmother. And so in his mind, he was, I think he was kind of, beating this family member up. And then Swami pulled him up and, I had a conversation with him. And Swami told him that when you harbor negative tendencies towards others, especially very strong feelings of dislike or jealousy or greed, you yourself, gather karma because of it, and that's not healthy for us to harbor negative thoughts and feelings towards others. So then the student said, Swami, but I can't help it. This person has really cheated me and my family. How could you excuse his behavior? So then Swami very lovingly, advised him, counseled him, and the solution that Swami gave was, when you, in these type of instances, when somebody is eliciting a very strong, reaction from you, think of something that is loving. Attach something loving to that individual so that, your own feelings will be, it'll be modified or it will be sublimated, because then your attention focuses on something that is loving. So I heard this experience, and then Of course, Swami gives you plenty of opportunities to test drive. Sometimes you say like, okay, Swami, I'm going to give up eating sweets, and the very next day you'll be at a party and there are a lot of sweets, right? So we think like, why is it that when I commit to something, a particular sadhana, you feel like, more things are coming your way to like really test you. That's generally our way of looking at it, but it's also Swami's way of giving us opportunities, right? So almost within a week, a situation came where I was getting a little bit, annoyed and irritated, and it was kind of like, it was getting out of control because I was having this conversation with someone. It was no fault of theirs, but it was my reaction to them, and it was just like, really getting to me. And Swami, of course, reminds me like, hey, you heard this, this devotee's experience. This is the time you test it out. Interestingly, and this is a Sai devotee, and I remembered when I had visited the family. They had a lot of pictures with Swami, and so then I started focusing on what I had observed in Swami's face when he was interacting with this family, and I could feel that immediate shift in my heart, because I was focusing on Swami, and then slowly I kind of calmed down, and then we resumed our normal conversation. So this is something that I try my best to remember and practice even at work. There was another instance where there was a co-worker. The buttons were being pushed because it's going to take time. The change is not going to happen right away. It takes a lot of practice. My co-worker, they're very forthright and vocal about their opinions. And one time it kind of got very uncomfortable because we were, it was a group setting, and this co-worker was speaking their mind and speaking it in a manner that was very, very uncomfortable. So I was like, this is a co-worker. There's no Swami picture that I can imagine, for them. And then I remembered something that they had done, which was very sweet. A few months ago, for another co-worker of ours, this person had brought a birthday card for all of us to sign. So then I kind of leaned into that, kind act that they had done. Even though it was something very simple, it was meaningful, So just finding ways of trying to lean into something that you could, say is positive and is associated with this individual. So then I was like, Swami, this works. And I'm trying, you have to constantly practice and learn to kind of, have elevating thoughts. How do we practice though, right? It's not easy, and a lot of times, I've heard myself, and I've heard also others share that, I keep trying, but I feel like, it has not made any difference. I don't think I'm progressing, because the next time something bad happens, it kind of brings me down automatically. Here I'm reminded of a beautiful analogy that Swami had given about wall clocks. Now we generally look at our phones for time, or we have digital clocks. But Swami gave the example of a wall clock which has 3 hands. You have the seconds hand, the minute hand, and the hour hand. So you have 3 hands. And he said the movement of the seconds hand is perceptible because it's constantly moving. 60 seconds. It's constantly moving, so it's very perceptible. You can notice it. Notice the progression. The minute hand, he said, is less perceptible, the movement. 60 seconds, then the minute hand moves by 1 unit. The hour hand, the movement is even more subtle. And then he said, he compared that to the 3 paths. He said the seconds hand is like the path of action, karma marga. You're constantly doing service, so then you see the outcome. It's very tangible. And then he said the seconds hand is like the path of devotion or the bhakti marga. That is also perceptible, but it's not as perceptible as the seconds hand. So you're singing a bhajan, a really good bhajan, it will uplift you. And then he said the other hand is like the path of wisdom or the jnana marga. The movement is very subtle, right? So we try to practice Swami's teachings. We should not try. Swami says do. So we practice Swami's teachings. And then you say like, well, I've not progressed. And here Swami is saying it is a continuous process. To never give up. It's a continuous process. And you will see the shift, the subtle shift in your thinking. An example of that Swami himself has given. He said, all of a sudden you notice the flower. You notice things more closely. And there is this sense of awe. You will notice that when somebody is, when certain events, trigger a certain reaction, you don't jump to it. Or when it happens, you take a pause or you reflect and you actually tell yourself, I wish I didn't say that. Or you say, I wish I had not reacted that way. You have that sense of like, let me not try and do it again. That self-awareness is growing. All those are positive signs. Very, very positive signs. When you see it, when you feel it, write it down somewhere and lean into it. So with these few experiences and thoughts, I want to offer my love and gratitude to Swami again for giving me this opportunity to reflect on him, to stay connected with him. I hope you got something out of it and you will be able to put it into practice in your own lives. And I pray to Swami that may we all experience his loving grace and guidance and wisdom always. Thank you. Sai Ram.